All right, Craig Salin, Reed Mouse here, post-game Chatterbox Bengals, and I feel like there's a phrase, a cliche, like I'm at a loss for words, and it feels like a cliche more often than not. But I truly am struggling to wrap my brain around what I just saw in that game, because for the first 3.5. The majority of the game, all the way up until the final 3 minutes, I was okay with where it was headed. I was cool with what I was like, hey, this team's not very good. I actually came to grips with the Bengals not being very good weeks ago. I keep hope alive, because they're going to beat the Jets, and then, they're going to play the Bears. And when Joe Flacco threw what originally looked like a pick six, I was like, all right, that's it, right? This team's not very good, whatever. And they just rope you back in. And it feels like in Cincinnati we have a tendency to lose games in the most painful way possible. I don't know if I've ever seen a loss more painful than that. Like, I'm genuinely, it feels like I'm grieving. My heart is sunk. My brain is mush. My stomach is in knots, Craig. I don't know how we lose that one, but I do know how we lost it. But I guess I'm saying openly here on the post-game Cincinnati Chatterbox Bengals show, I don't know where to go. I don't know how to do this show. I'm just openly saying that I don't know what to do here. So, Craig, I'll hand it off to you.
I appreciate it. Not to me to try to figure out where to go with this. I mean, I changed this rundown like 4 times in the last 5 minutes, I think, because of the insanity of how that game ended. But, I mean, how do you get that high and then that low so quickly is beyond me. And PFF's initial report has the Bengals at 11 missed tackles in this one, Reed. And I think that's ultimately going to be one of the main storylines here as we talk about this loss. But Colston Loveland not only getting that open in a situation where you knew that the Bears needed a big chunk in order to get into field goal range, but then to miss the tackles and allow him to scurry into the end zone is beyond me. And you tip the cap to the offense. I get it. I'm sure we're going to get some great quotes from Zack Taylor in this post-game press conference talking about how great the offense was and how defense just didn't do enough and all these things. But, I mean, how does this team continually find ways to break our hearts, to lose games, to just completely implode? I mean, there's zero excuses in that situation to give up that touchdown. Zero excuse. And we're going to talk about it later, but I can't fathom Zack Taylor being your head coach in Pittsburgh.
So you made that take before the show. We've been texting all week, and you said you lose this game, Zack Taylor cannot be your head coach when you play Pittsburgh in November. And I'll be honest with you, Craig. I gave a big old eye roll to that on 2 fronts. One, I was like, this is the Cincinnati Bengals. Like, they're not going to fire a coach midseason. And 2, I was just like, I think I'm also in favor of when the season's dead, not running with an interim coach, because I don't want him to wrap off like 5 straight wins and then we convince ourselves that Dan Pitcher should be the head football coach of this team.
Well, you don't have to worry about that. Darren Simmons will be the interim head coach.
Okay. Well,
he's had plenty of opportunities to be the head coach, and they haven't given it to him, so I don't think we have to worry about that.
Okay. Well, if they win 5 in a row, we'll see. We'll have a different conversation when that happens, if that's what happened. But I rolled my eyes. The point was, when you said that, I rolled my eyes because I was like, but dude, whatever. Sean Connor put this one of the chatters put this earlier. I genuinely do not know how you can go out of this bye. Luckily, they have a bye. Come and play in Pittsburgh on November 16th with both Zack Taylor being your head coach and Duke Tobin still being on the payroll. I do not understand how you can be taken as a serious franchise, which, by the way, we're already not taken as a serious franchise. I don't know how you can be considered a serious franchise with those two guys still employed by this team in 2 weeks based off of what we saw today. And it's not just the fiasco that took place in that final minute where we get an onside kick, take a touchdown, and then they go down in 50. It's the whole game. It's the whole season. It's what we've now experienced for the last 3 years. I do not think you can be considered a serious team, a serious franchise, if Zack Taylor and Duke Tobin are still a part of this franchise come November 16th in Pittsburgh. I am 100% on board with you in that regard, which I don't know if you're there with Duke, but I'm 100 on board with Zack, and I'll take it even further with Duke.
I'm on board with completely wiping the slate clean from top to bottom. I mean, I'm talking front office, I'm talking scouts, I'm talking coaching staff. I don't want another one of these situations where you go out and you get a new head coach, whether that's an internal hire or not, and then you keep some of the guys around because you think that they're good enough. Darren Simmons has been around for a long time with multiple head coaches. You know, you talk about whether the other coordinators are going to stick around or other coaching staff members are going to stick around. Like, I want a top to bottom complete wipeout, blank slate. Go out, hire somebody that you trust, give them complete reins of the coaching personnel. I'd love you to give them a lot of pull in the decisions as it pertains to the player personnel. But the truth of the matter is that this team is going to go nowhere if they continue to go with the status quo, which is Duke Tobin and Zack Taylor, because we all just watched it and people in the chat are saying it. Zack Taylor doesn't play defense. We get it. 100%. Zack Taylor is not out there giving up 47 points on his own. But I guarantee you this. Zack Taylor sits in that draft room every single year and goes to bat for the guys that he believes in. And every single year, this Bengals team continues to miss in the draft. And we can blame Duke Tobin. We can blame Zack Taylor. We can blame everybody. But the truth of the matter is that I've watched it year after year, and I've seen Zack Taylor and how he takes the lead in that draft room, and I 100% believe that he has more pull than Duke Tobin. And so, yes, I want to get rid of Duke Tobin as much as anybody else. But Zack Taylor is the leader of this team. Mm-hmm. Whether it's the offense that struggles, whether it's the defense that struggles, whether it's the draft picks, whatever it may be, it falls on Zack Taylor. He cannot be your head coach come Pittsburgh. He cannot continue to make decisions personnel-wise because we've seen how that works out. We did this last week, Reed. We don't need to do it again. The draft picks for this team have been atrocious for years, and it all comes down to Zack Taylor. The Bengals weren't this bad drafting when Marvin Lewis was their head coach, and you know why? Because Marvin Lewis in this head coaching position has input when it comes to the draft. Zack Taylor and this scouting staff have continued to fail year in and year out to bring in talent that can actually compete and make this defense middle of the road. That's all we've been asking for the last 3 years. Be a decent defense, and they can't do it. They're out there missing tackles, blowing coverage assignments. They get pressure on Caleb Williams. They can't bring him down a single time this entire game. It was embarrassing from start to finish, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I don't see how it can be that Zack Taylor is your head coach moving forward if you seriously believe that Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and all of these guys are your future, because ultimately these guys have a clock ticking. And whether you want to admit it or not, your window shrinks every single year that you waste with Joe Burrow as your quarterback. You lose a year that you should be a Super Bowl contender.
Everything you said is bullseye. You put it right in the middle of the dartboard, because you said this last week, and it is true that Zack has a lot of sway on this defensive side. And for those the people that are watching this, for the people that are going to hear this podcast later on, that will say Zack is the offensive head. He's an offensive mind of a head coach. So are you going to fire a guy when the offense looks like it does? And this is the point of being a head coach. You said this last week. When you agree to be the head coach of a team, when you take those checks, when you take the praise when your team makes it to the Super Bowl and goes to the AFC Championship, when you do all those things, you also oversee the entire team. And when one side of the ball is as pathetic, not bad, pathetic as this defensive unit is. When you are the head coach, unfortunately, you don't get to keep your job anymore because you hired the defensive coordinator. You were in the room when you made those draft picks. You oversaw this defense because it is your team that you are the head coach of. So you do not get the pass any longer, and you shouldn't have got it from the get-go of saying, I'm an offensive guy, I'm the offensive play caller, our offense looks good. You got one freebie last year with Lou Anarumo, and Lou Anarumo is the defensive coordinator of the team with the best record in football, 7-2 Indianapolis Colts. So you no longer get that pass anymore. You oversee this team, and your team on one side of the ball is as pathetic as I've ever seen a professional sports franchise look. So yeah, I could not believe you. I rolled my eyes when you said that if they lose this game, he needs to be gone. And it seemed almost like you were projecting, I want this to happen, not this is going to happen. I do not understand how it cannot happen. I do not understand how you cannot come out tomorrow and say, we thank Zack Taylor for his service as 6 years as our head coach. Didn't work. We're going elsewhere. We're looking in a different direction. An amicable split. We gave you shots, brother. But yeah.
You can call it projection in terms of me wishing that that's what happens. You can call it whatever it is. The realistic take here is I saw, maybe not exactly how this happened, because this is an insane game. And one of my concerns, if I'm being completely honest, is that the Bengals front office is going to look at this and say, oh, well, we competed all the way to the end. Look at what we did with the onside kick and we made it a game, blah, blah, blah. I hope they don't do that, because that would be a terrible look. But the reason I talked about this is because Caleb Williams went out there and diced apart a terrible Cowboys defense. He did the exact same thing today, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. The Bears offensive line is pretty dang good. And I went out, and I talked about this in the pregame show. I went out and picked up Kyle Monengai in my big money fantasy league because I knew this would happen. 26 carries, 176 yards. This defense is so predictable that you know exactly what's going to happen week in and week out. So how can you possibly come here? You can call it projection, you can call it wishing, whatever it is. The truth of the matter is that I'm a realist, Reed. I look at what I see on the TV screen and I say, all right, well, this can't continue to happen.
So you're right. This cannot continue to happen. You just said a point that makes me crack up. You remember you said this defense is so predictable in everything they do, and you just know it's going to be terrible, and then their looks are predictable and all this stuff. You remember in the preseason when the Bengals were patting themselves on the back oh yeah, this defense doesn't look good, but we're not showing anything. We're holding our cards close to our vest, close to our chest. We're not showing anything. Isn't that LOL funny looking back at it? Isn't that
it vanilla on purpose, Reed?
Right.
We're keeping it vanilla.
Isn't that the funniest thing you've ever heard of now? Looking back at it? And I remember talking in the preseason about when people would say this, and I'm like, hey, I mean, I get what you're saying, but there's defense, yeah, you give different looks and stuff like that, but you're not going to Ben Johnson a game where you're just running trick plays left and right and you're going to be a great defense because of all the plays. At the end of the day, you've got to get pressure on the quarterback. You've got to stop the run, and you got to tackle guys in open field. And that's just point blank what needs to happen. So, yeah, it's this. My mind is mush, Craig. And the point of this whole thing, this open of this show, because we'll get to the game and how we got along those ways, because first off, I need to also use the restroom.
Okay. I was going to ask you if you wanted me to do a full game recap, so you had
at least I'll send you a text
we'll do
when I'm back.
Slightly abbreviated, yeah.
The point is that for the first time, it feels like it's not just a call from the fans. It feels like it's not just an angry fan base going, we need to fire the head coach, we need to get rid of him. It feels real that this team is going to have to fire Zack Taylor and maybe even Duke Tobin, because what we witnessed that whole game and in that final minute is so embarrassing. On top of losing to what is without a doubt the worst team in football last week, We've given up now 39 points to the New York Jets and 47 points to the Chicago Bears at home when you had a rejuvenated hope amongst the team. It feels real that all these things are going to happen.
I just love that we went into this 4-game stretch here, the Steelers, Jets, Bears, Steelers game, hoping to go 3-4 or 3-1 because we wanted to split with the Steelers and expected to chalk with the Jets and the Bears. And here we are 3 weeks later. We somehow sneak out a win against the Steelers and then drop games to the 0-7 Jets and the Chicago Bears after getting a 42-40 or whatever it was lead. 42-41 lead with like a minute left. And I mean, it's just it's a comedy at this point, Reed. It really is. And like we legitimately, and we've talked about this before, like legitimately we love this team and we want them to succeed, and it hurts to watch this. But like I legitimately can't help but laugh. You might have seen me on camera like as I was watching the last couple of minutes, like literally when Colston Loveland made that catch and broke free, you just like it almost was like you were expecting it because of how bad the Bengals defense is, that you just laugh because that's exactly what should have happened. And you said it on the broadcast, oh, this field goal is gonna hurt like hell. Then I was texting with some buddies. I have a friend who's a Bears fan, and I said the same thing to him. I said, man, this field goal is gonna absolutely kill us. And then literally 3 seconds later, Kid Show can't say exactly what I said, but forget a field goal, and just unreal.
It would have, it was actually a field goal. Losing on a field goal would have felt infinitely better than the way. And also, I don't know when award season is. I guess it's January for like the Oscars and stuff like that. I deserve an Oscar, an Emmy, all the above, a Golden Globe, because that score graphic, that score bug that's always a play ahead of me. I looked before that play happened on the screen, and I saw the score change, and I stone-faced it for the best of this stream, like I didn't just see that. Like my world had not just been crumbled apart. Like I didn't just see an absolute disaster off on my screen, and I was just like, oh, and they dropped back to pass, and he passed, and I had to play a part. And I guess what I'm saying is I'm tired of playing this part. I'm tired.
Best actor in a leading role goes to Reed Mouse for the Bears versus Bengals live watch along.
For a comedy, by the way, not a drama. For a comedy, correct? Because I felt like a origin story of the Joker, because I was just sitting there after it all set in. I just started laughing like a maniac, because I was just like, what else are you gonna do? We're watching this team, and I'm going to sit down on November 16th, even if I didn't have to do this show, and I'd convince myself that they're going to win, and I'm going to get upset when they lose, and I'm going to do it again the week after, and I'll do this every single day. But it's just it's hilarious, man.
Well, the good news here is Zack Taylor knows it. Quote from his post-game press conference, quote, "We know there's going to be pretty loud noise out there. Criticism is deserved with the results we have." Well, Zach, I don't know if it's just criticism. I don't know if you're going to have a job when it comes tomorrow morning. We'll have to see what happens. But his post-game press conference, at least from what I'm seeing right now in the tweets and stuff like that, is exactly what you would expect from a Zack Taylor press conference. Quote, "We fight like hell every single day to maintain the culture we have. We got to get some momentum." F the culture, Zach. How about you tackle somebody?
Well, the culture's done.
We're working like crazy. We're doing everything we can. It's not because of a lack of work, lack of effort. This is the exact thing. And I love that he's not out in the media like completely bashing his team and all of those things. I wouldn't expect that from him. But the truth of the matter is that there's zero accountability anywhere in these quotes. There's no talking about specifics about how they're going to get better. There's no talking about anything specific about what led to this complete letdown at the end of this game. And the truth of the matter is that it's the defense. And I 100% understand last week we gave Zack Taylor a lot of criticism because he talks like an offensive coordinator. At some point, he's got to go on the record and say this defense isn't good enough. He's got to do something here. He's got to get accountability. Just going out and tackling dummies during practice isn't going to be good enough for this team to get better. So you've got this bye week. A lot of teams take some time off when they get to that bye week, but man,
Zach might have a lot of time.
I don't know how much time you can give the players.
It's he might have a lot of time off. I'll tell you this: that if he does stay around, if he is our coach on November 16th, then I will sense that similar to what you do in a season when your back's up against a wall on a season and you kind of empty the kitchen sink, you throw the whole playbook at them and you just try to scrap a win regardless. We could see that in the standard of a coaching where Zach, through his entire 6 years here, has always been pro player, has kind of been reserved and always been uplifting. And maybe it's not in his personality or him as a person to change it, but I can tell you that if he's still the coach here, I would sense that he would be throwing a kitchen sink at coaching, to being like, all right, well, I'm gonna get fired up and do those things, which is just silly to think about. But
I mean, at what point do you stop worrying about culture with a team of guys who aren't good enough to win in the NFL anyway?
Good point.
Like,
right. What are you trying to keep this locker room from doing? And it's like,
are
well,
we talking about a culture where 3 guys requested a trade in the last week and a half? Correct. Is that the culture we're talking about, Zach? The culture where guys were missing 11 tackles in a game that you just lost 47-42. Is that the culture we're talking about, Zach? Are we talking about the culture where after Joe Flacco threw an interception, he went on the sideline and was laughing about it with Jake Browning and other players? Is that the culture we're talking about? Because that's what I saw. And I don't know about you, but I'm glad the players like playing for you and aren't scared to play for you, because it's surely working out really well right now. All right, you want your bathroom break?
Would love one, Craig. Would love one. All right.
Let's do a quick I'll do my best to not recap everything while also understanding that basically every drive resulted in points in this game. So
you give me like 2 minutes. That's all I need. So you do you.
Right, I'll go quick. I'll cover everything just for the benefit of the podcast. I apologize to everybody that heard this at halftime, but we'll go quick in the first half and then we'll break down the second half here. And Reed will be back in just a minute. All right. Well, this one started with a bang. Charlie Jones took the opening kickoff 98 yards to the house for a 7-0 Bengals lead. Ben Johnson answers by going deep into his playbook, runs a double reverse wide receiver toss to Caleb Williams at the goal line, makes it 7-7. Bengals get a field goal to make it 10-7. Cairo Santos misses a 47-yard field goal in the final minute of the first quarter, but DJ Ivey was called offsides, allowing the Bears to go for and convert a 4th down. Zacchaeus would take an end around 15 yards to the house, 14-10. Bears lead early in the second quarter. After the teams trade punts, a Bengals drive is set back after Orlando Brown Jr. is called for unsportsmanlike conduct. They have to settle for a field goal, make it 14-13. Bears add a field goal with 1:30 left to play in the half, extending their lead to 17-13. But the Bengals waste no time answering. They get a 19-yard completion to Jamar Chase. Then Joe Flacco finds Tee Higgins for 44 yards down the sideline for a 20-17 lead and a touchdown. Out in the second half, the Bears put together a 7-minute drive to start it. They cap it off with a 5-yard touchdown pass to Colston Loveland for a 24-20 lead. Flacco then completes back-to-back deep balls to Tanner Hudson and Mitchell Tinsley to take the ball down to the 2-yard line. Tee Higgins gets in the end zone for the second time, putting the Bengals back on top 27-24 with 5 minutes and 19 left in the third quarter. Back and forth continues. Britton Brown pops one for 22-yard touchdown for the Bears. They lead 31-27. Flacco sacks and fumbled on the first play of the fourth quarter. Ball was recovered by the Bears. Defense holds the Bears to a field goal, and the lead stood at a touchdown, 34-27. An intentional grounding call on Joe Flacco pushed the Bengals back, and they attempt a 54-yard field goal, but somehow McPherson's kick is short, and the score stays 34-27. Bears take over with 6 minutes remaining. Kyle Monangai breaks off a 39-yard run, and then DJ Moore takes an end around 17 yards, ruled out at the 1. Zack Taylor challenges that play. That Moore fumbled through the end zone. The play was, in fact, overturned, but instead of it being overturned to a fumble, it was overturned to a touchdown. Bears extend their lead 41-27 with 4 minutes left. Bengals get into the Bears territory with three straight incomplete passes, brought up 4th and 10. Flacco found Chase Brown for the first down conversion. Then Jamar Chase drew a pass interference on the following play to get the ball down to the 5. After an incomplete pass, Joe Flacco throws his first interception as a Bengal. Bengals force a punt and drive right down the field to find the end zone with Noah Fant garbage time touchdown. Bengals go for 2 and complete the Tee Higgins 2-point conversion, make it 35-41 Bears with 1:43 to go. But Bengals, they get the onside kick, bounces off a Bears player, recovered by the Bengals. Then Flacco finds Higgins for 12, then Higgins again for 23, down to the 22. Flacco dumps the next pass off to Chase Brown, who picks up 15 to the Chicago 7 with 1:03 to play. After a run play to try and chew a clock, Joe Flacco finds Andrei Iosivas in the back of the end zone for a touchdown in the 42-41 lead. After 2 incompletions to start the drive, Caleb Williams picks up a first down with his feet. On the next play, he finds Colston Loveland for a 58-yard touchdown. Bears go for 2 but don't convert. They lead 47-42 with 17 seconds remaining. Flacco's Hail Mary is intercepted well short of the goal line. Bears come into Paycor and defeat the Bengals 47-42. Bengals fall to 3-6 on the season heading into their bye week. Joe Flacco, 31 of 47, 470 yards, 4 touchdowns, 2 picks. Chase Brown, 11 for 37, 8 receptions, though, 75 yards. Tee Higgins, 7 for 121, 2 touchdowns. Jamar Chase, 6 for 111. Andrei Iosivas, nice bounce back week for him. 5 receptions, 66 yards, and a touchdown. But the Bears, Caleb Williams, 20 of 34, 280, and 3 touchdowns. Kyle Munningai, 26 for 176. Caleb Williams added 5 for 53 on the ground. Loveland, 6 for 118 and 2 touchdowns. DJ Moore, 4 for 72. Zacchaeus, 6 for 58 and a touchdown. Caleb Williams caught 2 balls, 22 yards, and a touchdown. And that was it for the scoring. 47-42 is your final. And I know we've already kind of talked about it some, Reed, obviously, but we got to talk about the defense yet again. I know we've talked about it at ends at this point, but the truth of the matter is that you give up this number of points, you're going to be the main talking point every week as long as you do it. So we had the conversation about Zack Taylor's hot seat. How hot should Al Golden's seat be at this point?
I mean, like, listen, it's. I don't think he should be fired in this regard. Like, I don't think he should be fired just because you need someone to be the DC for the rest of the season. But if we fire Zack Taylor, let him bring in whoever he wants to bring in, right? Like, then his job. But like, at this point, just I mean, you need to fill the staff. You need to fill the team. So just let it happen. I guess I don't care either way. If you want to fire him, fire him. Who cares? Clean the whole slate. Let someone else get some experience so that on their resume they could say I was the interim defensive coordinator for the Cincinnati Bengals in 2025. Sure, whatever. But the point is, when you play 2 games at home against a team that probably come season's end will have a combined 11 wins, 12 wins maybe, and you give up a combined 500-plus rushing yards in those 2 games at home, that's not a serious defense. Like, we keep throwing around this phrase. I said this on the live stream, that last year and this year, the Bengals have had a historically bad defense, which is true. There's no doubt about it. That is true. But the better way to phrase it, the better word in our constant search to accurately find the best words to describe things, the better word to describe this defense is it's not only historically bad, it is hilariously bad. Because when your team plays the way that they do, when this defense plays the way that they do, at the end of the game, there's nothing you can do other than just laugh. Just take a big old chuck it up. And you know what? Zack Taylor and Al Golden and Duke Tobin and Dan Pitcher and this entire coaching staff, they should too. Because They are running a scam on this city for their $1 million contracts. It is a scam. What they're doing to this team, what they're doing to this city that has garnered $1 million contracts, it's a scam, is what it is. Because I've never coached football. This is such a tired thing that people say. This is such a tired thing that fans say. When they're like, I could call plays better than them. I could have better play call. I could coach better than them. I genuinely think my Great Pyrenees, who is the dumbest dog I've ever met in my life, could have similar defensive output if you gave him Out Golden's play sheet and put a headset on him. It is Halloween. It would be Halloween. That's what rookie the Great Pyrenees dog is gonna be. He's gonna be Out Golden. Yeah, that's just it is hilariously bad. And then the same way that I started this point is how I'll end it. When you play 2 games at home against 2 teams, the New York Jets and the Chicago Bears, who at season's end will have less than 12 wins combined between them, you cannot give up 500 rushing yards, especially when one of them isn't even having their starting running back. It is not serious. It is not. It's so far beyond non-competitive that once again, in our constant quest to find the best words to describe, I'm at a loss. I'm going to have to open up a thesaurus to describe how non-competitive this defense is at times, Craig.
Yeah, I don't even know where to start here. I'll start with the CBS graphic that they put up at the end of the game, Reed, that I'm sure you saw.
Is it for Matlock?
Defense, no. This defense, 27 plus points allowed in 8 straight games. The opponent red zone TD percentage up over 70%. Chicago today was 4 for 5. And they've allowed 500 plus yards in the last 2 games, which is the first time they've done that since 2018. And it wasn't just 500 yards. It was 576 total yards. And the reason I was laughing a little bit there towards the end, video coming out now or shortly ago, Jamar Chase, as he's walking to the locker room, 1 effing stop is the comment from Jamar Chase. So that culture that Zack Taylor is building is really wearing off really well on the offense as they continue to put up historically good numbers while the defense continues to put up historically terrible numbers. And it just the answer is not clear at this point. The answer is that this is, if we're being brutally honest, Reed, this is a multi-year rebuild.
Oh,
that needs to happen on the defense. This is not something that they are going to address in the draft and in free agency and expect to be competitive next year. This is a multi-year rebuild. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I would love our next head coach to be defensive minded and bring in an O coordinator who understands how to utilize these players, use the creativity that we saw from Ben Johnson. And I firmly believe that you don't need an offensive head coach with the talent that you have on this team to be successful. Go out, get a defensive head coach, let them get this defense in a much better position, and let this offense cook under an offensive coordinator that can actually put together a game plan to maybe chew some clock in a game that ended up 47-42. Maybe, just maybe, a brilliant idea here, Zach. Maybe you try to run the ball more than 15 times in a game like this.
I'll get to
and
that point.
Not with a minute left when you're trying to quote unquote chew clock and make them burn timeouts.
I'll get to that point later. But it is, I'll say this. It is, when people don't like the NFL, they use this same phrase over and over again. It's a copycat league. It's a copycat league. But it is funny when if you follow the NFL long enough, you will see these trends. And what happens is everyone follows these trends, then someone counters it and is successful. Then everyone follows that trend and someone counters it and be successful. And what I'm talking about is what you just said, a defensive head coach. For years, for the last 5-6 years, because of guys like Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan, when you went to go hire a head coach, you wanted the offensive guy. You wanted the young, hot guru that's going to make your team great. And then every team followed that mold. From the Bengals down to the Panthers, down to everyone. The Bears, Ben Johnson. Everyone followed that mold. And now, because of what we're seeing in New England, because of what we saw with the Los Angeles Chargers and Jim Harbaugh, you are seeing teams, and I know Jim Harbaugh's an offensive guy, but he's kind of got the grizzled persona. He's not some young, hotshot offensive coordinator. Because of guys like Vrabel, and I think Vrabel might even be an offensive guy. But the point is that you wanted a hard-nosed guys. D'Amico Ryan with Houston Texans. You want these guys that are the counter of those young, hot offensive guys. These guys that are going to build a hard-nosed culture and develop these things. And yeah, I'm on board. The problem is now all these guys, all these teams that I want an established guy that, has some defensive success. Those guys are few and far to come by because they're the wanted. They're the house on the block that everyone wants to buy. So I don't know who that is, but I'm with you. I'm on board because it seems pretty clear that with Jamar Chase and Tee Higgins and a competent guy that can distribute the ball, this offense is going to put up a lot of points. So I'm on board with getting that defensive guy. And I said this on Off the Bench this week, and I said it on the show last week, that if any of the guys in our division come available, I want them, sans Kevin Stefanski, John Harbaugh, Mike Tomlin. But yeah, it's pretty clear that this team is so far away defensively that we need someone that knows defense and knows playmakers on defense to have a heavy hand in drafting those guys to this team.
What'll be interesting to see is whether or not they're willing to go, and maybe willing is not the right word, but will they go with one of those like grizzled veteran coaches like Spags, like a Jim Schwartz in Cleveland, who's obviously had a really high quality defense there for years. Even like a Jeff Hafley in Green Bay, who hasn't necessarily been in the NFL for a long time, but obviously has that Green Bay defense playing really well and was a head coach previously. Or will they try and find the next young up-and-coming guy that they can pay bottom half of the league like they did with Zack Taylor and just hope that they strike iron? And that'll be the real telltale here of how serious Mike Brown is and KD Blackburn and this entire Bengals ownership group when it comes to finding a solution. Because if they go out and they try to find, and again, they could absolutely strike iron with a young guy who we've never heard of before. Don't get me wrong. They did pretty well with Zach in the first couple of years. But the truth of the matter is that I think if you're serious here, the answer is one of those guys that already has proven themselves at the NFL level, not just a 1 or 2 year kind of early in their career fluky guy. And that'll be what's interesting, because from a quote unquote culture perspective, the younger guys might be a better fit, but from a winning and a team building, like personnel perspective, those older guys might have a better viewpoint on that piece of it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because we're clearly heading down the path of Zack Taylor's not going to be our head coach here next year. I don't know about on November 16th, but we're clearly heading down that path, and that's where does this team go? Because I'm just off the top of my head, off the rip, some guys that are established. You named a couple that are defensive guys. There's some other guys that are established that are offensive guys, which wouldn't fit into the mold of what we're talking about here. Then there's some young guys. One hot name that is being thrown around a lot, and he has a connection to Cincinnati, is Jesse Minter from the Chargers. He went to school here in Cincinnati. He went to Mount St. Joseph University. So that's something to keep around. It'll be interesting. But you are right in the fact that it feels likely that the Bengals will cheap out when it comes to whoever we hire when that time comes. And I guess we're doing a lot of projecting, assuming that Zack Taylor gets fired, because who knows with this franchise. It just feels like this is going to happen at some point. It will be interesting if the noise gets so loud around this team, because that's a common complaint. Pay a head coach, get a serious guy like the Broncos did, like the Patriots did, like the Chargers did. And maybe they will surprise us and hire something, but it feels so far away.
And you know, you look at a lot of the people like to say, oh, well, they let Marvin Lewis stick around for 16 years or whatever that number was. And I understand that. I do. And, you know, you look at Marvin Lewis's early in his tenure, and he won the AFC North in 2005, and then lost in the wild card game to the Steelers. And then he went 8-8, 7-9, and then 4-11. And it almost feels like we're on a similar trajectory with Zack Taylor, right? Zack obviously had the 2 AFC championship appearances, the Super Bowl appearance, but like from that perspective, you know, you have success early on, and then you kind of have a couple years where you fall back. But the Bengals allowed Marvin Lewis to stick around, and the question is whether or not they do the same with Zack Taylor. Now, Marvin Lewis turned around and made the playoffs in 6 of the next 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked out okay for the Bengals in that regard, but they also didn't win a single playoff game in those 6 years. And then at the end, Marvin went 6-9-1, 7-9, and 6-10, and that was the end of it. It's just a matter of, will the Bengals bite the bullet like they did at the end of Marvin's career where they had 3 poor years, or will they view it similar to the early years of Marvin where he had 3 poor years and then turned it around and made the playoffs 6 times in 7 years?
The difference between Marvin and Zack is Marvin's team, though the lack of playoff success they had, they never felt elementary. They never felt completely inept. They never felt like they didn't deserve to be on that field, like a lot of these defensive units and these Bengals teams have felt through the first 2 years of Zack Taylor's career and now this year, to where we are now 3-6. We've lost 6 of 7. We've given up 27 points or more in 8 of 9 games. And to be quite frank, in 9 games this year, they have played well once. I'll give them twice at most. But in the 6 losses, all 6 losses have been embarrassing in one way or the other, have been absolutely embarrassing. And you can say a lot of things about Marvin Lewis, but week after week, his teams did not look embarrassing. They constantly they played professional football. They did not look embarrassing. So that's why this feels different, to where, yeah, you kept Marvin around for 18 years. Yeah, well, the teams didn't look like this. So that's why it feels drastically different about Zack Taylor.
Yeah, that's valid. I want to get to some super chats, Reed, and we'll get your response to some of these, but want to make sure that we acknowledge it. We certainly appreciate all of the support that we've had throughout the entire day, watching along with Reed and living and dying just like Reed has been on this live stream. So we'll start with KP from KC5 with the $2 super chat. Bengals defense new name is First 48 as they give up 48 points. JQ with the $2 super chat. Don't matter who the coach is. Not this year, but I think if you want any hope of rebuilding and getting back to the promised land, it does matter because of that input in the draft room. Ben Riley with a $10 super chat. I was keeping a running list of comedic errors, and it was roughly 24 at least. That being said, the last week, our crime was not scoring 40. This time, it was not scoring, kids show, 50 points. It's rough back-to-back week showings for this defense for sure. Colin Will, member for 16 months. Appreciate your support, Colin. If you're not a member yet, make sure you subscribe and join Nutcutter Nation. It certainly helps us keep putting out great content for you. Team reflects the personality. I love this super chat, by the way. Appreciate you, Colin. The team reflects the personality of their head coach, and the truth is that Zack Taylor's team has been soft, lacks attention to detail, and makes boneheaded decisions and mistakes in crunch time. And I got to be honest with you, Reed, it's true. We haven't really talked about it, but Zach's persona is exactly that. Whether it's in a locker room after a loss and he's handing out the game balls, whether it's a post-game press conference, whether it's in a game, that is Zack Taylor. And you look at this defense, they certainly are not hard-headed, tough players. So I think it's a great point by Colin.
No, that's a great point, and that's true in all aspects of life. Every organization, every community, every team, every family reflects the personality of its leaders. I act incredibly similar to my dad. My siblings act incredibly similar to my dad. We act a lot similar to our bosses here at Chatterbox Sports because that's just how it is. That just teams, families, organizations reflect their leadership. And when we've seen the same thing now for 6 years under Zack Taylor, it's pretty clear there's not going to be some coming to God moment with Zack Taylor and how he coaches his team that it's going to switch and turn. So, yeah, nail on the head there, Colin.
Yeah. Harrow says, do the dance for us, Reed.
There you go. Thanks for your support, Harrow.
JQ chimes back in. Jamar Chase has more tackles than Shamar Stewart. I checked. Shamar Stewart got 1 solo tackle today, though, Reed. So shout out to Shamar for that.
Yippee!
Then he chimed back in again with another $2 super chat. You're crazy. Bengals will not pay a coach. And I tend to agree. For all those people that think they're going to go out and hire John Gruden and pay him $8 to $10 million a year, I find that very hard to believe that will be your next head coach. And I know a lot of people would love to see John Gruden on the sidelines. I think there's some people that would hate to see John Gruden on the sidelines, but the truth of the matter is, at least in my perspective, John Gruden, not a candidate for the 2026 Bengals head coaching job or beyond. All right, Reed. Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. I guess the real question now, Reed, is how do the Bengals attack the next 2 weeks? Obviously, we talked a lot about the coaching staff and whether or not their seats are hot. We talked about it on the pregame show today, though, that there were reports that if the Bengals were to lose today, that they may become more open to trading guys like Trey Hendrickson. It's obviously a belief that Logan Wilson could be moved, Cam Taylor-Britt, amongst others. The trade deadline is on Tuesday, so make sure you keep your calendar open for the next 2 days, Reed, because we may have to jump on live to cover some breaking news. But if you're the Bengals front office, or maybe if you're not the Bengals front office, what does the next 2 days look for you? And then what does the next 2 weeks look like for you?
If I'm the Bengals front office, when I say clean it up, clean the house, yes, do it all. You get rid of Zach, get rid of Duke. Well, I guess you got to keep Duke around to at least facilitate these trades.
I mean, you look at the Dolphins. I mean, they just fired their GM, Chris Greer.
Yeah.
And they're expected to be very active at the deadline. But they also have an assistant that I think a lot of people are high on that may end up being their GM anyway. So might be of a different situation. But
just based off the way these last 2 weeks went, I think it's very likely now. I think it is very likely that the Bengals get rid of Trey Hendrickson and part ways with Logan Wilson. And, I mean, maybe even McKinley Jackson, who asked to be moved. Like, all these pieces, like, I think that there's a high likelihood now because they see what we've now seen really since week 3, which is this team's not very competitive. We can get excited when we beat the Steelers. We can get excited that we almost won 2 games against the Jets and the Bears, but it's done. It's 3-6. The season's over. Joe can come back in December, and we can win those last 3 games, and it'll be whatever, but part with the pieces that you don't think are going to be here next year anyways, and see if we can get extra draft picks. Because I'll tell you right now that if we bring in a new coach, he's going to like those. Whether it be another second-round pick for Trey Hendrickson, which seems incredibly wishful thinking with the way that he's been banged up and because we are not in a good position to leverage the deal. Yeah, it just get as many draft picks in here and spend them all on the defense and see where we can go. See where we can go into next year. And, man, it's just it just the wind is just out of the sails, and you got to get rid of it all. You got to get rid of it all.
Yeah, you got to do whatever you can to set up your next head coach for success, and that means that you've got to stockpile picks. And hopefully, team is desperate enough to give you a first rounder for Trey, but I think at this point you got to settle for probably a second or a third plus some. Certainly, Logan Wilson is under contract at a pretty decent clip, so it'll be interesting to see what you can get for him. McKinley Jackson, literally, if somebody will just take him for a seventh, you're taking that all day. It'll be interesting to see. And if there are other players as well that could be contributors elsewhere that are on expiring deals that are of interest that haven't been mentioned yet, then certainly you have to explore those as well. And I don't know exactly who would be intriguing to people when it comes to the trade deadline.
I don't know what our deals are with
I don't know
offensive players like Noah Fant. Like, is Noah Fant on a 2-year deal? Like,
well, I'm wondering about guys like Joseph Asai.
Yeah.
Obviously, extended Ted Karras, so I don't know that he's an option. But Geno Stone, I think, is up at the end of the year. Noah Fant, you brought him in for a 1-year deal. At this point, doesn't really help anything. So, I mean, you got to listen on basically anything, right? I mean, if anybody's going to give you anything for a guy who on an expiring contract, then we'll see you later. And even some guys that are maybe under contract for next year too, if they're not part of the long-term solution, you got to listen on them too. I mean, TJ Slaton, OBJ, I wouldn't turn down calls for basically anybody. Is there anybody on the team right now that you're not even listening to options on right now?
I think you should always listen to calls because there's always a price, right? We love Joe Burrow here in Cincinnati, but if some team offers, if the Kansas City Chiefs offered us Patrick Mahomes and 4 first-round picks for Joe Burrow, you make the trade. Like, there's always a price. As absurd as it is, there's always a price for something. So you listen to anything. But, yeah, I mean, other than guys that are clearly part of the, like Jamar Chase, who I said earlier, might be the best Cincinnati Bengal to ever play. It would take a huge amount, and then like DJ Turner is playing really well. I even like guys like Dax Hill at the current moment. I don't know. I don't know how it works in the front office. I've never been in a Bengals front office, or when you're calling people around. About the extent that I've seen trades is the scene from Moneyball. So sans that, I don't know how they go about. So I just don't know if you're just calling up Howie Roseman and be like, you like any of our players? Need some help? And then you call the next guy. You like any of our players? They're available. We'll give you a good price, like a used car dealer. But
it's funny. I maybe I'm a bit of a loser for this, but there's a guy on social media that I watch somewhat regularly who is a deal negotiator for like car buying. So it's funny that you bring up that specifically, but like his whole thing is that competition drives, in his case, the price down, right? So he's buying a car, he wants competition. Well, same thing here. So to your point, Eagles, we know you want Trey Hendrickson. What are you going to give us to give for him? Hey, Niners, we know you want Trey Hendrickson. The Eagles are willing to give us this. What are you going to do?
right.
Hey, Eagles, Niners just said that they'd give us this. What are you going to do? You got to pin people against each other, see what you can get. And certainly, I don't think that it would make any sense for Trey Hendrickson to be on this team moving forward. Obviously, his injury complicates things a little bit, but
right. Someone put in the chat, 4th round pick for Trey at best, a half-season rental for an injured 30-year-old. That's a fair. Yeah, that's more than fair.
It's a fair comment. I don't think the Bengals move him for a 4th round pick, but it's certainly understandable that would be what you would think. But I think I saw, who was it? I just saw the asking price was a 3rd round pick. Shoot, I don't remember. There's somebody else out there who's also expected to be on the trading block that is they're looking for a 3rd round pick. So, I understand the comment. It was the Dolphins looking for Jalen Phillips. They're looking for a 3rd round pick. So if Jalen Phillips can bring in a 3rd-round pick, then certainly Trey Hendrickson can bring in more than that. So, all right, we got another super chat from Rhino Express. If the D wasn't hot garbage, the Bengals would be 6-3, and that is 100% accurate. Unfortunately, the Bengals D is in fact hot garbage, so that is a moot point at this point. A lot of people in the chat want to make sure that we acknowledge Cam Little just hit an NFL record 68-yard field goal for the Jaguars. So shout out to Cam Little. He's thrilled to celebrate other players right now.
What the heck happened on that Evan McPherson kick?
How did he come up so short on a 54-yarder?
54-yarder with like not a whole lot of wind. How did that? What happened there?
I don't know. I was wondering the same thing, man.
What? Shout out Joe Flacco. 470 yards, 4 touchdowns. Shout out to Joe, man.
Shout out to Joe. All right, we take a look at what's coming up. Obviously, the bye week is first, and we'll see what happens there. Reed and I certainly expect to be live at least one of the next 2 days as Bengals trade news happens. But make sure you tune in to Off the Bench Monday through Friday, 10 to 11 and then the Stone Shield show from 11 to 12. They, as always, break down all of the latest Cincinnati sports news and breaking national news. Chatterbox Bengals will go live with any breaking news that happens over the next couple of days or beyond. So make sure you turn on your notifications, follow us on all the social media channels, do all those fun things to make sure that you don't miss out on any of the news that breaks over the next couple of days, if there is any. But the Bengals are back in action 2 weeks from today. They're going to Paycor Stadium in Pittsburgh for a Week 11 matchup with the Pittsburgh Steelers on Sunday, November 16th. That game is scheduled for 1 p.m. on CBS. But as always, you can catch us right here on Chatterbox YouTube and social media. Starting half an hour before kickoff, we'll have our Chatterbox pregame show, and then we'll have a live watch-along and a postgame show as well. Demetrius Knight Jr., Bengals linebacker, going up against T.J. Watt. The daunted linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers will be looking for revenge after a somewhat quiet game against the Bengals 2 weeks ago. So that'll be one to watch for sure. And that is, again, Sunday, November 16th after this Bengals bye week. Reed, any last thoughts on today, on the impending news that we expect in the next couple days, or on the Pittsburgh matchup in 2 weeks?
My final thoughts are for all my family members and friends. I'm sorry if I've embarrassed you on this live stream. And you can stop sending me the screenshot of me depressed on the corner of the screen. I've seen it. It's funny, but yeah. I got no words for you, Craig. I'm sorry. I wish I had more to say, but out of all these games that have just taken it out of me, doing the 4-hour watch along and then doing this post game show, that one just took so much energy in the final 10 minutes that I've just got nothing to say, man.
I can't believe it. I can't believe you've been live for 4 hours and don't have anything more to say. Couple quick notes before we wrap this one up. Around the AFC North, I think it's important for us to touch on this really quick. The Steelers, they end up beating the Indianapolis Colts 27-20. They're now 5-3 on the year. Colts dropped to 7-2. The Ravens obviously were winners on Thursday, 28-6 over the Miami Dolphins. The Cleveland Browns are on a bye this week. Bengals officially behind the Baltimore Ravens in the standings. Ravens at 3-5. Bengals at 3-6. The Ravens will play at the Minnesota Vikings next week while the Bengals are on their bye. So before we talk to you again for a post-game show, the Bengals could be a full game behind the Baltimore Ravens in the standings, which I guess is probably not a surprise to anybody. But again, Chatterbox Reds, Chatterbox Bengals, Chatterbox Bearcats, Chatterbox the Flying Lion podcast.
Flying Lion podcast going live next hour for the live stream for the Hell is Real Derby, trying to advance in the MLS playoffs. 6:30.
There you go. Make sure you like the stream if you haven't already. We sincerely appreciate you all joining us for this entire show. 10,000 views almost already on this. So appreciate you all tuning in, and we'll be sure to see you in 2 weeks against Pittsburgh, if not before. For Reed Mouse, I'm Craig Sandlin. This has been Chatterbox Bengals with the weakest possible Who Day possible. Who Day.
Hooday!